committee meeting tonight, and thank you for coming because I know it's an extra meeting. Just a few house rules, if you could just turn your phones off or put them on silent. And in the event of the fire alarm going off, we just follow the administrator who shows to how that goes. Okay? Apologies.
One apology from Councillor Couch.
Minutes. Is everybody happy with the minutes of the last meeting? Which was on the 10th of February. I know I wasn't here, so I have read through them. Everybody happy with them?
Yeah.
Wow. Do you have any interest, leaders' interests? Leaders in the gentleman? Okay, well, before we move on, I would just like to put on record my thanks to Richard West, who was a chair of this panel from 2014, 2015, and then 2016 to 2022. He was a really good chair. He was very inclusive, taught me a lot about his meetings, and he did it with a sense of humour. He was always informative and incisive. So I'd like to place on record our thanks for his attendance.
Chair, if I may, I just would like to endorse your comments as a former chair of this panel, and Richard as my vice chair. You're absolutely right. There's always a good sense of humour, always a real care for the staff and the details that we discussed. And I was really passionate about making sure you can hear this and would wholeheartedly support your comments.
Definitely. He will be missed. So if we move on to item 3, that's the workforce pillar 2 engagement.
Good evening, thank you. So I'm pleased to bring this evening the second pillar of the workforce strategy. So in February, we brought pillar 1, attraction and retention. This time we are bringing the engagement pillar for your review and the endorsement. So we've gone through the same process to reach the conclusions for this pillar as we did the first one. Nick went out and did a number of engagement sessions across the council at all times of the day, and engaged with as many people as possible. I believe we reached 93 people.
We reached 89.
89 people, yeah. And then that was through face-to-face and Teams, so as many people to attend. We've taken all of their feedback and distilled it down into 3 key points that we've added in the workforce strategy for this time, which are communication, recognition, and having a positive working environment. And as I said last time, these are some very high-level topics, which is what we wanted to keep in the strategy. But in June, we'll bring the action plan, which will have a lot more detail and a lot more of the work that we will do to achieve these areas. Some of them will be quite quick wins, and some of them we're already going to start working on, whereas others will be much larger and will take a longer amount of time as we go. Do you have any questions?
Just an observation, I like the way the communication and recognition, they go hand in hand together. It was good to see those together. I thought that was very, very good.
I have a question actually about the recommendation. So the committee is asked to consider and endorse the strategy. I wonder if it might be more appropriate to say consider and endorse sort of the ongoing work for the strategy. I think we have sort of a second draft, and we're hoping to have the third draft, third pillar. And at that point, we really want to endorse the strategy. And I just want to leave the words in there.
Chair, so I was fortunate enough to attend pre-meeting, and he gives a walk through the process, which was fascinating. It's also a lot of really good work that's going on. One of the questions that came up in the meeting, and he said, well, how better speaking to Nicky about that one. We were talking about that transition from post lockdown, post COVID working into a new way of working.
Yeah.
And obviously the whole thing around hybrid and place and all that. The question that occurred to me is, do we have as a percentage of our global staff more hybrid working now than pre-COVID? That was my first question. And therefore, are the challenges very different? Sorry, I'm just trying to say, are people expecting to go back to what they had pre-COVID? There's a real understanding that what is coming will be very different. What is here now, what will emerge is very different. And effectively, are our management cohort ready for managing in this new world? So three bits of questions there.
So I wasn't here pre-COVID, but I believe that everyone was pretty much in the office, so there wasn't that level of hybrid working that we have now. But we do have hybrid working that will continue alongside business need, and people come in as and when it's a need for the business rather than it being a requirement every day. Are our managers ready? Possibly not, but I'm not sure any managers are ready yet. I think hybrid working is something that's growing and evolving every week, every month. We're learning to understand it differently, people's psychology of being at home, people, how we work, how we motivate people. So we are looking to give some advice and guidance to managers, which will be another evolutionary piece, because we know what we know today, but in this time next year, hybrid working will again mean something very different.
So I'm really glad to hear you say that here. Not for it, you thought about that. I think part of the conversation we had in this room, Councillor Beddoe, get yourself on that. That's terrible. Sorry. We get into that whole how that management cohort is key to making this land, and all this great work could just completely fall by the way if that isn't really tackled. Just something we were talking about, making, and probably for your action plan, is making sure there is that support, there's that investment, and it's not just one-off training, it's not just that whole cultural shift. And we were all keen as we were talking about that to make sure that that's built into your action. I'm sure it's already on your mind, but we'd love to see that come to fruition, because otherwise, I'm afraid a lot of this will be wasted work, which none of us want.
I think some extra points along that as well. So you're right, reflecting back on what the pandemic did, it changed everything overnight. So a lot of people learned instantly on the job almost how to do this, and lots of good practices have been born as a consequence of that. But the formal training and support for that hasn't been in place. It is one of the things that's part of the action plan, and it's one of the things that the investment that's built within the MTFS will allow us to do. So it will be a step change, I think, in how we support our managers. I think the thing that I've put on the table is the feedback we've got from staff during the sessions as well. It is about management, about leadership, absolutely, but it's also about personal accountability as well for everybody in the organisation. And that came through loud and clear, that people also recognise that their role, how they relate to their team, how they work with colleagues, is also part of their everyday activities as well. So they do work in that construct. And I'd say where we are at now, I think is very different from how we were when the pandemic finished. So our operational teams, we do have set patterns and ways of working for those teams. So for example, the housing team are in twice a week. They need to spend time together to work on cases, but also to deal with some of that unloading of quite difficult cases, to have your colleagues around you when you've just report somebody. That happens much more easily in a face-to-face environment. So that kind of work is now in place. Plus, some teams, frankly, cannot really work from home because the customer service team are here the whole time. So we've got that real mixture across the organisation. So I think there's lots of good stuff in place. I do think the investment in training needs to be done.
So, I know we're not here to talk about pillar 3 wellbeing, but it really is key. It comes through in the wellbeing piece. And I think when we've networked and we've continually attended webinars and networked with not just other councils but private sectors, I think what's really noticeable and key in an organisation is the post-COVID working and the transition and how do we do this and what's best. And it isn't one size fits all, it's actually looking to do what's best for the organisation, which is why the wellbeing the whole engagement session pieces have been really key, because we're actually listening and hearing what the staff need, so we can align that with the corporate business plan.
To further enforce the we need to make sure we cannot go back to pre-COVID working because, we have other, employers working for us, so we have insufficient space. However, we have, in this building, we typically have around 129 desks available, and we're currently running around 30% occupancy on that on average. We have some days like today when all the planning team will be in, so that helps push it out. On average, we only have about 30% of those desks being used. But yeah, we do know we have places for people above the civic suite now. We have CPs well, just moving systems of ice team in here as well. So there isn't enough space to move those all back. Set up finance. I don't want to be. They work on their spreadsheet. They want to be at home and use quiet.
So we have the pillar 2 conclusions here in the report, of course, the engagement pillar. And so it seems like conclusions have distilled down into communication, recognition, positive working environment. And I know we've got 3 of our staff reps here. I'm just wondering what your reflections are, and do you think that is the 3 areas that you recognize that do need to be focused on going forward?
So that absolutely every hour your parents, yeah.
I think communication, I attended all the sessions as a staff member. I think communication was one of the biggest things that the staff wanted. To be fair, they wanted the recognition as well. So I would agree, yeah, definitely.
That's good. Because as I said at the beginning, them two, I think go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other one. Communication is the starting point of anything, isn't it, really? So that's really good. So there is, I wanted to change the
just ask the question to Nick. Sorry, can I just check the number of employees you said were engaged in pillar 2?
Yeah, so in pillar 1 for attraction and retention, we reached 131. In pillar 2 for engagement was 89. And then for pillar 3, we reached 113.
Crucially drawn from across the organisation, different roles and responsibilities from after 6 in the morning through to late o'clock at night. We're doing sessions with all sorts of different operational resources that we've got. So it's a genuinely heartfelt response from the organisation, I'd say.
In pillar 2, we were able to reach 7 further departments, and then in pillar 3, for wellbeing, we reached 4 further departments. Obviously, we want to keep the confidentiality and sensitivity of staff names, but what we were thinking about potentially doing is we could put together a map as to actually where we've been able to pinpoint and reach. So we could actually put that in part of the guidance.
That's a final point, because you know you want to move on, but one of the things that's been consistent as well is that attendees in the workshops have asked to be involved in delivering the work. So making it happen will be not done by a top-down structure, it will be done working with staff who participate in the session. So we'll give them space to get involved and make some of the actions, which I think will just get ownership of the whole organisation. So that was a testament to Nick's skills of facilitating.
I think it will really champion. We listened, we heard, we act, we feedback, and we're all on this journey together. And if that's done, it's good.
and it's good to remember that this is a living document, you know. And so that's quite good. Thank you for all the love.
It's been an absolute pleasure. We're incredibly welcome. Honestly, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. So I think we've changed the wording to endorse the ongoing work of growth establish towards the strategy force. Is everybody happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Move on to number 4, that's the policy updates.
Thank you. So we are in 4 policies for update and review this meeting. So the first one is the disability at work policy. That's been updated with some wording around reasonable adjustments to make it clearer and added information around access to work for our employees, just so that people can understand a little clearer where they're getting some support. We've updated our leave arrangements policy in line with our statutory changes to carers leave policy, and added the additional birthday leave that we granted as part of the pay deal last year, and added in some the lines around the domestic abuse leave that came as part of the policy that came to the last committee. Maternity leave, it's not been to committee for a while, so we've just refreshed the front cover to bring it up to date. And there have been a number of statutory changes as part of paternity leave, so we've included those to make our policy legally compliant. And the probation policy, again, we've updated it and just tweaked the action plan to make it more consistent with our implementation. Anybody have any questions on the policies?
On the first one, section 10.1.1. So this is explaining how staff would be able to go to their manager, HR, or their employment rep. I'm wondering from our employment reps whether they think that works in practice.
So I think so some of the discussions we've had is the fact that we will have kind of key skills when it comes down to certain policies and certain ways of working. So when we're going to be refreshing our page for the ERG group, so we'll actually highlight and indicate where some of our key strengths are. So that will make us more accessible. So it will be quite plausible if they want to reach out to us in the first instance.
I thought they're really good. They're very easy to read. Particularly liked the adjustment passport. I thought that was very easy to go through, and that. And I think I asked the question: the probation policy that's given to all newcomers straight away.
Yeah.
Could you just give us a time frame as well for that?
Yeah, so anybody who's employed on a permanent or fixed term contract for 6 months or more is given probation of 6 months. Anybody on a fixed term contract for less than 6 months will be given a reduced probation period, and everyone's reviewed through that period with regular check-ins. And there's the kind of the regular positive path, and then there's things that are not going so well. There's a slightly more formal route.
Okay.
In the maternity leave policy, if I look at who is eligible in 1.1, there's 5 bullets. From my reading, 4 of those 5 describe a person that could actually be a mother. So the title of the policy, paternity policy, is that something that's legally defined that we have to use? Or have we considered the paternity policy action might apply to mothers as well?
The paternity leave policy is it's a standard term used across most people, and it's a legal framework we follow. However, we don't have to use paternity leave. What we are looking at is combining all of our family-friendly policies, and maternity, parental leave, into one family-friendly policy. But we just need to make that work happen. So we've refreshed the policy this time just for the statutory updates to make sure we're legally compliant, and then we'll make sure it will be an all-encompassing policy when we can convert it.
Just on the carryover policy 2.9.
Yeah.
If I understand correctly, you can carry 5 days, which I know is pretty standard for most companies, but that 5 days lasts the whole year.
We normally ask people to take it within the first 3 months.
Okay, but they don't have to.
No, we generally encourage people to.
It can be impractical in some departments, so like the finance, we have to get the statutory accounts published by the end of May. So I really, really do not want the people who are producing our statutory reports saying I need to take my holiday at this time. So it gives a bit more flexibility.
And then the leave expires if they don't take it within the year. Yeah. Okay. Because obviously, if you back end all your leave, you're continually rolling over and keep building up.
Carrying over is at manager's discretion, so and it's normally exceptional circumstances. It's not you just say I'm on holiday every year to keep carrying 5 days. I would be expected. I'm normally expected to use in the year. Within the year, it would only be if there was absence later on in the year, or if there'd been a big project that I couldn't be released from, then there might be a case for it. But otherwise, we don't carry over as a norm, it's an exception.
So with the exception of finance, we encourage it to be done with first quarter.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think that's what these policies actually do give clear. Clearly lays out what I'm also good managers. Recognising that people aren't taking a bit, I'll be a bit concerned if people are taking their, I'll be asking what's behind them not taking their annual leave. So the group is asked to consider and endorse these policies. Are you happy to do that? The payroll, 2024 pay process.
This is a two-part paper that we're bringing to you. The first part is to update you on this year's pay discussions, as I'm sure you're all aware. We were successful in achieving those with the support of EIG and Unison. We have actually already made our first pay this year with the new rates, which has been a real achievement. And there's been great collaboration from EIG and Unison to help us get that across the line in such a timely and positive manner as well. Yeah, really good engagement all the way through. So they've got better positive move forward. And the second part of our paper is to share with you the process we agreed when we met through with ACAS. ACAS came and facilitated the session between EIG, Unison and HTC management to agree our pay discussion process going forward, to give us a structure to help us to make sure that we keep on track and to give us a point where we would end discussions and move forward to ACAS rather than ending up in a situation where we're going around in circles. We want to obviously implement pay as expediently as possible for everybody, so hopefully we can all go to it in April. So this, we've included the process and we're asking you to endorse the discussion process used from this year onwards. Questions on the process?
If you look at the appendix and the process, how much of that did you use this year? In fact, even though this wasn't in place, because it seems to have worked. And I think actually maybe it plays down how well this has gone this year. I think everyone deserves a lot of credit being the first council in Cambridgeshire to achieve a pay deal.
I think, to be fair, we probably used the whole process within about 2.5 months.
Dispute, yeah.
We didn't leave the dispute, but everything up to dispute, we did it. We gave the financial information as soon as we could. We got the claim in from the Unison and from the ERG, and we had our 3 meetings in very quick. That was only 2 meetings at the end, in very, very quick succession. But we had just such positive conversations that meant we could move it forward. So as a process, it appears to work, and obviously having a little bit more than 2 months will be a little bit easier.
I was going to say on that, I think the only thing that we didn't probably adhere to was the timelines, because we started it later than the October as per the policy. But because it was done so effectively, I think it just managed. It just worked, didn't it? It just worked really well, didn't it? And everybody was on board with it. Everybody was following this, and the meetings were all pre-booked in the calendar. We actually cancelled the last meeting because we didn't need it because it had come to an agreement. So, I think from an ERG point of view, I can speak on behalf of the others in the room. I think for us it is a really positive process this time around.
So the process for adopting, do we endorse it and then Unison goes weighing ballots on it, or what's the process for endorsing an appendix to our agreement?
So the reps have agreed it, so we would have it to really have, yeah. It just depends on our current agreement.
I think give thanks to all concerned who worked towards this, because I think it was a very, very good piece of work. I think the process is very good, very clearly out. We've obviously worked together, and there's been some really good communication. So well done. Yeah. And everybody's happy to endorse the process. Yeah, yes. If it can send it away. And I think that's the end of this meeting. Thank you for attending. As I say, it was called as an extra meeting. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.